That's all I have to say about that.
Nice, spot on.
I sound like Forrest Gump there.
Yeah, no, I've got a slight smile on my face with that, as you say, whether they'll bring a large squad. If not, got a right to the cricket board said there are a few players who are ready to come out of
Yeah.
retirement, who are not retired, living in Australia. Yeah,
Day of training, he'll ask, "Hey, Ollie, do you want to come and do some fitness with me?" So we used to run away from him.
yeah, fairy tale game for him, I guess, and to a lot of if someone wants to write a script about a good comeback, can't get anything any better than what Usman did. Yeah,
You might
because I
not
think,
get 10 years out of them, but
yeah.
you will get good 3-4 years out of them. Welcome everyone. My name's Vida and this is Sri Lankan Cricket Podcast, a podcast where we discuss current news and developments happening in the cricket world with a special focus on Sri Lanka cricket. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host Sohan. How are you doing, Bora?
Doing good, Vida. Things have been pretty quiet, but overall, following the Ashes, life is good. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Games being called off due to COVID, so no cricket this weekend for me. Yeah, other than that, we've been watching Ashes and following what's been happening around the cricket world. So there's few news stories coming from Sri Lanka. Few players have stated that they want to retire from playing international cricket. Bhanuka Rajapaksa and Angelo Perera, they wanted to retire from playing cricket for Sri Lanka. And Dhanushka Gunathilake has informed the cricket board that he wants to focus on playing white ball cricket, so he wants to retire from Test cricket. And the bans imposed on Dhanushka, Kusal, Mendis and Niroshan Dikwella has been lifted immediately, and they are available for selection from now on. And Sri Lanka has a new interim coach for the Zimbabwe series. Rumesh Ratnayake has been named as the interim coach, and Ruin Perez as his assistant. And Usman Khawaja scores 200s in 2 innings. We've been backing him to come back to the Test team, and he has grabbed his opportunity by both hands and scored 200s in 2 innings. And we have a couple of questions to answer from our listeners as well. So, should we start, Bora?
Yeah, let's go to Sri Lanka. I think that's a good avenue to start the podcast today. Not a lot of cricket being played in Sri Lanka at the moment, so the discussions are around who are the players that need to be picked. Interim coach, it's a popular topic. Rumesh Ratnayake is the king of interim coaches in Sri Lanka. So he's had that post on numerous occasions, so he'll know what is expected. And when there are not much of cricket happening, where I think the topic moves into fitness, when we're trying to pick players in preparation for a series or tours ahead, if there are not much cricket being played, the next emphasis is to see where the fitness levels are. So I think centered around that came about. Also, I don't know whether they go hand in hand, but Bhanuka Rajapaksa has indicated that he is retiring. Angelo Perera is retiring, a strong domestic performer, and Dhanushka Gunathilake, who's indicated that, like you said, shorter format. I think a lot of players are heading in that direction, at least in the international circuit, who wants to focus on certain formats of the game. I think with the level of cricket that he's playing and the specializing that needs to happen, it's not a bad thing. I think a lot of Asian or teams in like Sri Lanka, Pakistan don't tend to play a lot of Test cricket. It has a lot of the emphasis is on the shorter formats. And if Danushka feels that will give him more opportunity to, better his skills, might be the best way to go forward.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've been busy playing a lot of cricket for the last few months. And, we know after a big season of cricket, what comes next is the fitness tests before the next series. So it's a normal thing. It's in the cricket cycle of things. And what happened here was they are now expected to run the 2K time trial in a minimum of 8 minutes and 10 seconds. So that's down from 8:55 minutes last year. And the skin folds level benchmark has been reduced from 85 to 70. So, they've raised the bar a bit high. And I'm guessing that's what's what's being required in world cricket at the moment. So, and as players, that's what's expected from you. Those are the things you can control. I mean, being fit and scoring runs and taking wickets is the things you can control. So you are representing your country, and there's certain standards you have to maintain. You can't have exceptions for certain players. This is not something that has happened only for this set of players. This has been happening in the past as well. Like great players like Aravinda De Silva had to lose about 10 kilos to come back into the side, and he did it. I mean, we used to run away when he comes to NCC, because after a big day of training, he'll ask, "Hey, Ollie, do you want to come and do some fitness with me?" So we used to run away from him. If he had to do it, then I don't see why this new generation of cricketers can't do that. But it is their personal decision, and we'll keep an eye on what's going to happen, because they'll have to select the teams soon for the Zimbabwe series. Bora.
Yeah, I think the fitness aspect, we knew this was happening. So something good that like to go back to is, it appears to be led by, could be from the committees, that the advisory committee that is pushing forward, because it can't be a Mickey Arthur scenario, because his tenure is finished, but
He's not there anymore.
the fitness element's always been. So it's something, it's backed by the cricket board as well. And the players, I think there was communication when the 2K came in through that, the time's gonna become shorter as we go along. So the players probably knew the preparation be around it. I think this is the first trial that's gonna have at that shorter time frame. So you're gonna have players a bit nervous or not sure how things are. And adding to it, you have social media coverage, so opinions tend to get around very fast. Whereas back in time, there was numerous fitness tests that are being done as players, as professional athletes. You have to go through each test to prove that you're physically ready to meet the rigors of the game. I think the skinfold 70 mark, that's a very lean, like it's a tight margin. I think that's an elite athlete's margin. But in between, I'm sure there might be certain exceptions or allowances that are allowed. It's just the proper benchmark, and they'll assess ideally they'll probably assess depending on each player's situation or where things are at. We don't know that till the players done the test, shown the results. They probably can look at it. But I think it's that reservation around that. So in the coming days, we'll hear more of players, either passing the test or failing the test, but also I think there are chances where you get a second go at it. It's not the end of the world. If all players decide, look, this is a test we can't make, we're going to all retire, it doesn't set up well for the situation. But I'm sure athletes, they're training well. We've seen a lot of players change. Bhanuka did come out and say he saw the signs of fitness changing, and the benefits of having, being fit and seen it, and now suddenly want to have that bit of time off doesn't reflect really well. But I'm sure he has his reasons behind it. But for the rest of the players or the system, we know there's a set system that main focus is on fitness. So hats off to the committee pushing through that.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we saw the difference between the players, especially when they're fielding. The fielding standards has gone up dramatically. So this is a system that works. And I've seen lots of support coming from past players to both sides of the argument. So it's something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll talk about it as it develops. And the three players who got banned in England, Sri Lanka Cricket has decided to lift the ban on Dhanushka and Kusal and Niroshan Dikwella. So they are back in the contention for selection. And we talked about Kusal Mendis having a good LPL season. This will change the composition of the team if they get selected. The fight for places in the white ball setup has got intensified.
Yeah, few ways to look at it. Could be some of the players' retirements fast track the early bans coming off for the other three, or it could be a sign where we feel there's not a lot of cricket going on at the moment, and they've served their time, done the time off. They've been good guys during this period. So the boards come out and said yes, they are free to or be ready to for selection. So not sure if there'll be any domestic cricket before the Zimbabwe series, but
No.
because that's how the letter reads, that they are ready or allowed to play domestic cricket.
Yeah.
But I think there's an upside into having more players coming in. We know Dikwella, how good he is behind the stumps. Kusal, Mendis, Dhanushka, Gunathilake, they've good players at their peak. They have their challengers around them, as most cricketers do. But yeah, interesting mix. Do you get all three of them back into the squad straight away, or do you pick one or two and work around that? Playing a tournament back in Sri Lanka means you can either have a wider squad, or you can change the three squads per game, like probably few players coming into a bubble, or having that second string players in a bubble and then swap as you go along. So they'll probably, maybe they want to have those that squad them in that squad, there's that second bubble or training bubble around it. So few avenues to look at. What I think I'm going back into, because of the players now bans being announced and also some of the retirements going hand in hand, is the rigors, I think, of cricket, international cricket, that is coming along. Those choices, I mean, Bhanuka, Rajapaksa, Angelo, Perera, they are all now at that maturity age of 32, 33 and onwards. Some players feel, look, I don't want to be involved with the rigors of pushing for it's different when you're a 22, 23-year-old against a 30, 34-year-old.
Yeah.
Your choices tend to change. So maybe that's their thinking, look, family and life after cricket is slowly coming into the picture now.
Yes, so many things to consider. I mean, my decision to move to Australia, it based on lots of reasons, family, and otherwise there was a possibility of me playing for a couple more years first class cricket in Sri Lanka. But you'll have to make those decisions according to your situation. So, and soon after Zimbabwe three one days, which they're going to play in Pallekele, Pura, they're going to come to Australia. So that's 5 T20 internationals. I think they'll have to bring at least 20 players. I mean, you can see England struggling to field a team in the Ashes because of the injuries they have. So they will at least bring 20 players to Australia. If so, there is a possibility of all three making that touring party.
Yeah. I've got a slight smile on my face with that, as you say, whether they'll bring a large squad. If not, got a write to the cricket board, said there are a few players who are ready to come out of retirement, who are not retired, living in Australia, who put their hands up in case they're struggling, especially in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But yeah, they probably would think about having a bigger touring squad, touring team. Yeah. That's something, it will be interesting. By then we'll know who the national coach is and who is the support staff around them. As it stands, Rumesh Ratnayake takes over the role for the Zimbabwe series. I think under the purview of Mahela, who will probably guide them or structure it around what needs to happen. New name, Ruin Piris. I know he was the head, was in charge of NCC some time back. So it's a good opportunity for him. I've worked with him briefly through my playing days, and also his some of the coaching stints he's had in more of batting roles to assistant coaching roles. So that's a good avenue for him to be part of a national setup and be exposed into that setup. So we wish him well. I'm not sure what the fast bowling setup is, because I guess that will fall under Rumesh Ratnayake as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, Dasun to lead another team into it.
He's recovering from COVID, so there's a bit of uncertainty of him captaining the series. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. I have a funny feeling that Mahela might come with the team to Australia for the T20s. We'll keep an eye on that as well. Yeah.
As an honored guest if we can get him on our cast, but
yeah,
not sure what his commitments around that. It will be a good series. Australia on a high, winning the World Cup and Ashes, so it will be a tough series for us unless Australia keep a few players so that they'll open up some of the Big Bash performers into it. But I'm guessing from Mahela onwards to the captains, they'll keep an eye out on what's happening in the Big Bash to see who are the players exposed there. Go from there.
I think that's a good place to move on to Ashes, Bora. We talked about Usman a lot.
Yeah.
Last few episodes, he got the opportunity to play his comeback test at SCG. He came out and played 2 magnificent innings and scored 200s in both innings. And, his celebration, the silence was something I was surprised to see, but it was really good to see him getting runs. Bora.
Yeah, fairy tale game for him, I guess, and to a lot of the, if someone wants to write a script about a good comeback, can't get anything any better than what Usman did. Listening to some of the discussions he had, he said he didn't have the best preparation, but it shows that a player who's at that maturity level knows it's just a few balls away or a minute or a time away from spending in the middle and everything comes across back into the groove. Because what you got to realize, he's trained his lifetime, or as a professional player they've been training so long, it's always one shot away or one moment away from things all coming back to it. But a lot of emotions involved because he was out of the Australian setup for a while, which was surprising. A lot of things went his way to get number one picked into this test match, COVID scenario. But I mean, he's done everything possible. It was good to see his family. He's got a young family out there. They enjoyed that moment. We enjoyed it watching that because we kind of heavy on his bandwagon behind, rooting for him to every success that he's getting, and shows the depth that Australia suddenly is finding in the batting group with now him scoring runs as well. So small leadership changes brings about some changes. So looks like Pat Cummins' leadership change has sparked a few, players who weren't being able to get on top of their game seem to be coming around now.
Look at Scott Boland. I mean, he must be thinking Test cricket is so easy. he's bowled 32 overs and taken 11 wickets. So was he thinking, what's this all fuss about? Test cricket being hard? And you're right. Now you can see the way the past cricketers, the present cricketers supporting Usman. I mean, there was a lot of support for him to get runs, and he's done that. Now George Bailey has a big headache because he has to pick a side for the last test, which is a good problem to have as a selector. That's what you need. But England, they're looking at the gunpoint again. They are trailing by 357 runs. They still have a day to bat to save a test.
Yeah. England are struggling. Something I'd like to just touch base, we've spoken about it as well, with the English camp talking about their systems not ready, players aren't ready for international cricket, but this is where coaching comes into play. As a top end coach, you can't be saying they're not ready to play. That's the skills that the coaches have to improve on players. That's your job as a coach, being able to spark that change. Of course, there is that time factor involved, but if you earmark, who the seasoned players are coming through the ranks, you spend time to improve and challenge those players in certain changes to do. It relates not only to England, it will relate to Sri Lanka as well. some of our players who we feel are struggling. We've heard sometimes we say they're struggling to play spin. Playing spin was a big challenge for Sri Lankans. I think it still is, even though we are in the subcontinent, we struggle to play spin properly. Um, how do we improve that? Put them under the pump in a scene like, okay, yeah, very rarely you're going to find players who are ready for international cricket.
Mm.
That's more of a natural talent coming through, like your Steve Smiths, Joe Roots. Everyone else is going to come up, be exposed to international cricket and try to bridge that gap. So if like you hear people saying, they're not ready to play international cricket, not many players are. It's how they come up there and the coaching around them, the environment around them that allows them to be able to bridge that gap.
Mm.
Sri Lanka was lucky to have Mahela, who we knew was in the setup. The Sangakaras, I think once they got there, they learned what they need to do to stay or become that international cricketer. Sangakkara himself would admit, as a junior, he wasn't, on par to what Mahela or even Tilan Samarira. He'll say, like in some of the interviews, he'll say some of the guys like Davishkas, Tilan Samaraviras, they were international material, whereas he was behind and he was always trying to catch up.
Catch up.
But once he got there, once he saw it, he worked out a plan. He probably related a lot with his dad, who was his, coach, or his personal coach, plus the support networks around him. And then he worked on improving himself. So that's the beauty of international cricket or the sport around it. And coaches around them have to help them, not be saying, "Oh, these players are not ready, they can't play here," kind of. That's something what I've noticed on the discussions with her. I feel all right. Um, you're not gonna find him like you're not gonna see a kid who's yep, he's the next international test cricketer, right? Or international one-day cricketer. David Warner was a T20 cricketer, worked himself through into test cricket, and
Mm.
he's found, a method. You won't hear in the media say, okay, he can't play test cricket, he will be out. So if that was I find that argument sometimes um, not, it's a hard one. I'd like to keep discussing more on that. Is okay, international cricketers, how can they, bridge the gap or be there?
I want to add a little bit to that. I mean, that's you summed it up nicely. I'll give you two examples, right? One guy is Kusal Mendis. He got the chance to play for Sri Lanka. He was like an overnight success, overnight sensation. But it's easy to make it there, but it's hard to be there for a long time. That's the challenge, isn't it? I think one guy who did that was Virat Kohli. I mean, he did that for almost 10 years, nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
Now he's finding it hard to score hundreds. He hasn't
Yeah.
scored 100 for 2 years. You get find out after certain, because technology today, you get find out. It's how you come out of it and find a way to score runs or take wickets. That's what makes you a better cricketer. I think Lassie Malinga talk about this all the time. Um, um, and the other example is Scott Boland, right? He's 32 and he's been bowling in these pitches for the last, I don't know how long, maybe at least 12 years. You can see it's not new for him. He has a job to do. That's basically he's doing the job he does for his state. He's doing that for Australia now. In the past, that's where we missed out. Like we talked about Sangakkara's, Mahelas. We had players who couldn't break into the side because you had great players like Sangakkara, Mahela, Dilshan, Samaraviras playing in the national team. I'll give you a couple of names: Mubarak, Kandambi, even Ian Daniel to a certain extent. That's where the coaches and administration should come in and have a plan to keep those players in the system.
Yeah.
You might not get 10 years out of them, but you will get good 3-4 years out of them. That's something came into my mind when you're talking about that.
Exactly. And I think when you look at it, it's not a structural or system thing then, because when you had the guys like your Mahelas, Sangakkaras, they all came through the same domestic club structure that we had. and the players we are lucky. I mean, others who came up managed to stick with that group, learn and find out ways to make it work for them, and find success at
Mm.
international cricket. That's the challenge what most teams have, rather than blaming a structural thing. England, they've got good players around. Now they're getting exposed into, okay, how can we find ways to find success, because they're playing a hard tour out in Australia. Um, I think I was going to touch base with her on something more with the players as well. Now that we're here, seeing a lot more international cricket being played, um, it's going to be interesting how the players handle this young team handles it. They're going to be on the road, by the sound of it, a lot of time away from their
Mm.
family, and there are going to be a lot of distractions around it. So does that distractions come with the all three coming back into the squad? How well they're going to manage is going to be interesting, especially from a squad point of view. How Dasun will be managing those players, and how those players are going to come back into an environment is going to be interesting, because number one, the spotlight's going to be back on them. The last thing you want to hear is the trio's back and this is what has happened back into the squad, kind of. That's going to be the headlines that's going to be there. How well they can keep that headlines away from that is going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's your leadership quality, isn't it? I remember when Graham Smith was appointed captain for South Africa, he didn't want a certain all-rounder in his team because he thought he's bad influence for the team.
Yeah.
You know what happened after that? In his time as captain, they were the Test champions, and well, they couldn't win a World Cup, but that was the golden era of South African cricket. It's a tough call, and a balancing act as well. So it's how you handle it. You need certain type of individuals in your team for certain type of jobs. So it's a balancing act. That's all I have to say about that.
Nice. Hold on.
I
I
sound like
agree with
Forrest Gump there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good challenge for the players, especially coming off. I mean, we've managed to, how do I say it? At the start, when this thing happened, or when our guys, or when the trio made that mistake, it was a bit of a panic scenario. So there was fear, there was a bit of panic in the camp, because I mean, this was in England. All three guys broke on the curfew. What's going to happen? Sri Lanka cricket, we lost three of our best players. What's going to happen to us? So there's that fear about, the anger around these players. Why are they doing that? Then it changed into, okay, we were desperate. We were looking for players. Who do we,
Yeah,
pin on there? Dhananjay De Silva, he was batting at, I think, number 3, or then Vanidu batted number 5, which was a good thing. I kind
yeah.
of pushed for that, but we were in despair. Then we managed the find, okay, who are the players do we look for? We managed to find Charit Asalanka because it gave him more chance to bat freely,
Pathum
or
Nissanka,
in positions. Pathum Nissanka came across.
Chandik
Avishka
Karunadekro.
Fernando. Yeah, so players are coming around. So, and we've managed to find a working system for us. So now it's, while that working system's going, integrating the other 3 back rather than resetting into a bad, the old habits which didn't give us result.
Mm.
So that's the management factor that we have to realize and work around it. If not, all the last year's hard work is gonna, I think, we struggle back again. But we are
Tough
now in
calls.
a more, now we are in a better space where we are now thinking of how do we beat teams rather than competing against
Yeah.
teams.
Now,
Yeah,
exciting
that
times. I'm looking forward to the new year. Should we do
question
few Q and
answers.
A's before we wrap
Lovely.
up, Bora? If
Yeah,
I think we
do
covered
that.
everything. Not much cricket happening. We can talk about South Africa and in India third test, and the second test, New Zealand versus Bangladesh. in the next episode. The first one is, so this one is from Dimitri. He's from Brisbane. He sent this in November. So remember, we had a big backlog of questions and comments. So Dimitri goes, thanks for doing this podcast. One question: why start the episode the same way every week? Superstitions? Big question mark. It's not superstition. It's just that we are used to that, and I don't know. Is it?
Superstitions are it's a different topic. I think we can run a different a whole episode on superstitions. Cricketers are very superstitious, number one. I don't think it's related to that, but if two cricketers were doing the same thing over and over again, a lot of people can think it's superstition. I'll just like, there are numerous things with when we are in a tight situation and we are slowly coming back into the game, or especially when we are in a batting, when we are chasing a target, or when we are batting or a partnership going, you notice few of the guys say, don't move from your seat, just don't move. And if someone moves and a wicket goes, that's it, end of the there's war in the dressing room, you broke this sequence. So cricketers are superstitious. There are scenarios where, like, this is something for the listeners to have a look, and you might pick in some of the batters when they walk in, they try to put their best foot forward into the boundary line. Always the right leg going into the line. If they don't, it's superstition. They'll somehow walk it out. So the first leg inside the boundary line is your right leg. So those are some of the things superstition does. For us, I don't think it is, but something we'll think about and change it up with. It's a bowler's routine. We are used to doing routines, top of the mark, same process over and over. Might be that with us. We both are bowlers, so we're happy with the same routine to follow. What I could.
Yeah, be careful. Some batsmen, they don't like when others come and touch their bats, and there's lots of things. Like some people, they don't step on the creases. There's a big list. I think we should make a list to come up with
some of the quirky happy some of our players have done. Yes, that's definitely a good one to venture in.
But the start of the episode has nothing to do with superstitions. We found out a system and we stick to it. I mean, it's nothing to do with superstitions. That's a good one, though. Go to the next one. Niranjan from Dikwella. Oh, it's not a question, actually. It's a comment. He says, great podcast. More interviews, please. We released an interview episode midweek last week. One we did with Ash Dolan. If you haven't listened to that, if you go up the feed, you'll find it. That was a really good one. We talked a lot about coaching, a lot about how the grade cricket system works in Australia, and our experiences and his experience playing cricket in different parts of the world, especially in England. And it was a really good episode. We had lots of fun doing that episode. You will like that episode. Go and check that out. And in the future, we will do more interview episodes. We have a few lined up. We'll make sure we'll keep you in the loop about those episodes as well. One more, Mara? You got one there?
Yeah, Shafiq from Melbourne. In Sri Lanka, you hear professional or parents pushing or not pushing cricket as a professional aspect, or a player moving into cricket as a profession. The thoughts around it, is it the sport only that the players have to be thinking about? What else would help become a professional athlete or a professional cricketer?
That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. Looks a very in-depth one, I guess. Yes, Shafiq, you're correct. Professional cricket is a big thing in Sri Lanka as well as the world, now that with the money coming into the sport. I guess advice for a young player would be, yes, you've got to be on top of your game, number one, but also got to be mindful around the things that are happening around you, managing your finances, being able to prepare for life after cricket as well is another thing. It's you're playing cricket, but you got to be mindful because cricket takes a lot of your time out of the sport. So um, professional athlete has to train equal to work as similar to a professional working in their workspace. Professional
Yeah,
athlete will probably need to train 30 hours a week with 35 hours a week on their skills. So
especially cricket, yes, because you have to do your fitness, your gym work, your recovery, plus your bat and ball skill training. So, I mean, that's what 3 net sessions per week, at least
yeah,
2 to 3 gym sessions a week, and
yeah,
plus in during season you play 3-day games. So that's a big commitment. And you're right, like that's 30 to 40 hours a week. When you are a professional, the money factor is there, but when you start, especially at young age, money shouldn't be the only factor. It's like any other career. You have to find out whether you're good at it first,
yeah,
and you have to find out what role you're playing in that in a team. You have to understand your own game
yeah.
and try to make it better as you go.
Professional cricket is or professional sport is a big ask on your skills. A change I'd like to see, or I'm not sure if it's happening in Sri Lanka, is more with the players that are involved in the professional sport with is whether we open up our players into exposure or getting advice of financial planners in the mix, because as players, like, you're trying to hone your skills of being an athlete and performing at the top of your notch, but then when the finances come, do you have the right advice? Do you, because those are the distractions around that with the players. Otherwise, I mean, in Sri Lanka, the media is it's all, they only play for the money, or they don't know what's happening. That's a age-old question that is coming. But we, as the players, if they have that support networks around them and the guidance at a young age, this is for players who are 20, 21 or 25 with financials coming into it, so those distractions don't get to them. We do have managers around, but managers are not financial planners. It's a different setup. So that guidance or that aspect of it has to change or has to come about in Sri Lanka.
It's like when you're sick, you go to a doctor. You don't you don't go to a random person for advice. So it's the same when it comes to money. You have to get advice from the correct people. So it's very important. I think that's a good place to wrap up, Pura. Please keep sending your questions to us. srilankancricketpodcast@gmail.com is our email. And we love to hear from you. We love to talk about cricket. So please send them in.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening in. It was a good episode where we discussed about, Sri Lanka's not playing much cricket. So the preparation around it, and as modern players, what things happen. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Most likely we've got a few more interview episodes coming up, so that will be interesting as we pick the brains of the whole guests that we'll be having on the show. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening in. We'll catch up with another topic to discuss on our next episode. Cheers, guys.
All right. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
See ya.